The basic rule. Do you have the rules handy? Because I don't want to go through like the specifics.
I mean, look,
I don't even remember. I honestly don't remember the exact yard line where the blockers are supposed to.
So here, Kevin Seifert has a tweet that he is sort of with the illustration on it. Let's see if that works. There you go.
Because I've got the basic gist. All I know is it's going to look more like a run play.
It's going to look more like a run play.
Yeah. So we've heard people before. So the traditional kickoff versus. I don't know. Do you want to read all this?
No. This is all you. I am merely a passenger for your love for the new kickoff rule.
The ball's kicked from the 35-yard line. That's the same. All kicking team players other than the kicker will line up with 1 foot on the receiving team's 40-yard line. So they're on the receiving team's side of the field. And the kicker cannot cross the 50 until the ball's touched. The 10 kicking team players cannot move until the ball hits the ground or the player in the landing zone or in the end zone. So we got to have all these new terms here. And then the receiving team, they're in the setup zone, 5-yard area between the 35 and the 30, where at least 9 receiving team players must line up. So you could have 2 returners back, is that right? And then 9 sitting there blocking. So basically, they're all within 5 to 10 yards of each other, the return team and the kickoff team, for the most part. So being within 5 to 10 yards of each other, that's what takes away the massive collisions where you're running 30, 40 yards and then, hitting each other. So that's where it's more of like a short area blocking game. And so now the traditional, we've talked about this a lot, like the difference between kick and punt returners. Every time you call Cordero Patterson the greatest returner of all time, you get the Devin Hester people that come in and like, no, it's Devin Hester. And I think the thing I always like to remind people is that even the old traditional kickoff return and the punt return are completely different skill sets. There's certainly some people who could do both, right? The old, like Eric Metcalf used to do that back in the day, right? Brian Mitchell, didn't he do both? Yep. There's certain skill sets where you do both. But to oversimplify, the punt returner is more of a shifty, short area space, one cut, get up the field type of guy. And then the kick returner is more of a running back type of style, right? Like read some blocks, same thing, like, hit a hole, but you're reading blocks, setting up blocks, and then, having a little bit, different type of vision. So I think oversimplifying, the punt return was more of a receiver, shifty return, shifty type of player, and the kick returner could be more of like a running back type of style. It feels like this is even more so now. The running backs, I think, will make for the best kick returners here, but especially the running backs that have the explosiveness to take it to the house. So it does, and then it changes things just from a blocking perspective. The players, and Eric Galko, who runs the Shrine Bowl, he had a really good tweet about this. I mean, the whole history of this is fascinating, how we even got here. We can talk about that in a minute too. But Galko does a really nice job saying this has team building implications because you have different types of players that you're looking for. You're blocking tight ends, maybe your fifth string linebacker. Those guys on both sides of the ball are going to be really important here because it's more of a line of scrimmage type of play. Not exactly, but it's closer to a line of scrimmage play now than it is the old traditional kickoff. So it's just that part's interesting from a strategy standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, it's designed to bring back the kickoff, essentially. Bring back the kick return as a play as opposed to just a ceremonial touchback at the start of games, at the start of the half. And immediately, when they passed this, Cordero Patterson got signed. Like, basically, the second this happened, Cordero Patterson signed to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So the greatest kick returner in NFL history immediately got signed back to a team as soon as kick returns became a thing again.
I was ready to make a joke about, Patterson. I mean, but the Steelers were like, no, for real, we're bringing him in.
Also, that's Arthur Smith, so he may well be their lead running back at this point as well.
No, that's a good point. That's a really good point. That connection was probably already in the works. Again, this didn't surprise the NFL. It's not like personnel just found out yesterday that there was going to be a new kickoff. Obviously, this had been in the works. So a couple new things here. By the way, the history of this, a guy named Sam Schwartzenstein.
Yep.
Right? He was former Stanford offensive lineman.
Schwartzstein, I think.
Schwartzstein?
Schwartzstein. There's no
Schwartzstein?
In the middle.
Sorry.
Schwartzstein, whichever one it is.
Okay. Well, Sam did a really good job. He drew this thing up for the XFL a couple years ago. That's why I brought up Eric Galko, who runs the Shrine Bowl now. He was a part of the XFL as well. But Sam, he works with Next Gen Stats now, or Amazon Prime does some of their advanced broadcast work. And this was kind of his brainchild when the XFL was looking to make kickoff safer. And the XFL was a place where you can innovate, right? And that is a good win for spring leagues where you're trying new stuff. We're seeing this in baseball where they're using my old league, the Atlantic League, Sam, to experiment with all of the new rules that they eventually implemented in Major League Baseball. They moved the mound back a foot or two in the Atlantic League. Isn't that nuts?
Crazy.
Moving the mound back a couple feet. They had the bigger bases. They had the pitch timer, and some of those new rules were implemented in MLB. So credit the NFL for looking to the spring league and looking to that data to be able to make some decisions.
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially that XFL kickoff play. As I say, it's designed to create more of actually bring the kickoff back as opposed to just these ceremonial touchbacks. One of the other elements with it is if you do kick a touchback, the ball is spotted at the 30-yard line. So remember, that used to be the 20, then it became the 25. So they are systematically making it less advantageous, effectively, to just boot the ball out of the back of the end zone and take the touchback.
So here's my take on it. And I apologize. I should have done more research on this. I don't know what the XFL average starting field position was.
Right.
So that's going to be the interesting point for the NFL. But the XFL did, though. They had a touchback put the ball at the 35. So that was even more extreme. So the NFL said, no, touchback's not going to be at the 35. It'll be at the 30, which is, again, 5 yards closer than the 25. That's significant, though, 5 yards. I believe most NFL teams will still lean into just give me the touchback. That's what I'm thinking. Because they were getting to a point where the touchback being at the 25, they started, let's kick the ball short, let's kick the ball right on the goal line, let's kick it right to the 1, let's put it in the corner a little bit, put a little air under it, and let's go try to tackle them before the 25 and steal some yards. You don't have that ability anymore. I think most teams are going to say just boot it through the end zone. But where this shows up, Sam, December and January games, where it is much more difficult. Any outdoor December, January game, in playoff games that are outdoors, it is much harder to ensure the touchback. Certainly not booting it through the end zone, but even if you kick it 5 yards deep, it still might be better for the return team to take it out. So that's where I think this shows up. So I think it's a new rule. This is why I'm actually thinking about special teams. It's a new rule that I think has an impact in the most important games as the weather gets less advantageous for kickers.
Yeah, it is going to come down to what the average kick return ends up being, relative to that touchback thing. I mean, the NFL or NFL teams were already playing with that previously. There was a while where everything was just getting booted out of the end zone because that was definitely the best average starting field position you could get. It also eliminated people like Cordero Patterson, the guys that are genuinely threats, to return it for a touchdown. Then you did start to get teams realizing that actually with this new touchback line, you are getting better at being able to just drop it there at the goal line, pin them back, and make them return it and tackle them short of the touchback line. So you were getting more kick returns deliberately because teams are better at covering it. And now, again, we're essentially incentivizing teams to return it. But we've moved that touchback line even further up. So it's going to be a season of playing around and figuring out where that balance is.
Yeah, so I think this has an impact. Yeah, we'll see what the balance is. I think it puts again, if teams want to kick touchbacks, they're going to make different kicker decisions here. Not every kicker is going to be Justin Tucker, be able to boot it through the end zone every single time. Again, the other aspect of it, I'm actually interested in the kickoff return strategy because, like I said, it's like a glorified line of scrimmage type of play. There's going to be run concepts, basically. They're going to run power and counter and outside zone. Like, they're going to run actual run type of schemes, basically, for the kickoff return here. What are you going to do with the up back, essentially, the second, your second return? Are you going to make that a fullback type? Are you going to actually bring back two returners like you had back in the day? Like, there's a lot of nuanced strategy, throwback plays. There's a lot more on the table here, I think.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to watch kickoffs this year.
Wow, look at that.
Going to watch kickoffs until they just become all touchbacks. I'm going to watch them in the playoffs probably.